Lloyd, thank you very much indeed.
Well, we may look back on this time and see it as the start of something that lasts generations. It will certainly be that way for Israelis and Palestinians. And no one can say how long the US and UK will have to continue striking the Houthis threatening Red Sea ships because, they say, of the war in Gaza. More than 1% of Gaza's population has been killed by Israel in the last 3 months after the Hamas attacks inside Israel killed more than 1,000 people, and with more than 100 Israelis still held today. And the Defence Secretary joins us now. Good morning, Grant Shapps. You'll be making a speech later on about UK plans for defence in an ever more dangerous world. Firstly, on the point about shipping and the view we just heard that the Red Sea and the Suez Canal is still not considered safe by shipping companies.
Morning. Well, yes, I think it is true to say that shipping companies are treating with extreme caution the Red Sea because of this ongoing several months, the attacks by the Iranian-backed Houthis. And I agree with your last interviewee that we will wait and see whether the Houthis now stop harassing shipping and stop trying to interfere with that freedom of navigation. We certainly were very clear that there would be consequences if they didn't stop, and you saw that last week. We are now assessing what difference that will make, and very much hope that a clear message has been sent.
If it goes on, it might well go on in an intermittent basis, which will be enough to continue to paralyse shipping as it has. If it does go on, do we have the capability to continue to take part?
Yes, absolutely. I very much hope it doesn't go on. We've designed it as a clear message to the Iranian-backed Houthis that the behaviour was unacceptable. This is a question of freedom of navigation that the whole world is subscribed to. And actually, the UK and London host the UN's International Maritime Organization. So we'll always stand up for freedom of navigation in international waters. And sometimes, in this occasion, it's meant that we've had to actually put action behind that pledge. We would do so again, but I rather hope that we don't need to.
The reason I ask about capability is because we do have a problem with defence recruitment, don't we?
Yes, I mean, it's the case that, but partly because we've got very low unemployment in this country, which is a very good thing, that defence, like all other sectors, are having to fight hard to make sure that we recruit people. But I'm also interested, I was struck when I became Defence Secretary, that it's also important that we don't lose people as well. And when we ask our brave men and women to carry out actions like the one last week abroad, I think it's only right that when they're at home, they have decent levels of accommodation.
Yeah. But this, just to explain what the extent of the problem, the data from your own department shows that the British Army's consistently fallen short of its recruitment targets for ranks below that of officer since 2010. And also we have warships being retired earlier than planned because of crew shortages.
That's not quite right. So certainly it is true that the recruitment-wise, there's a vast plan in place to increase the level of recruitment, not least, as I say, also make sure that we don't lose people early. And I was about to say we're putting £400 million into service accommodation in order to make sure that people have decent places to live. But with regard to ships being retired early, quite the opposite. I think the couple of ships you're talking about, the Westminster being one, was actually designed to sail for 18 years and is coming up for twice that amount of time. We've got, I think, 13 new frigates and destroyers under commission being built or on their way. And if you carry on just patching up old ships, then they end up coming out into the seas.
Yeah, but you need the crew on the new Type 26 frigates, don't you?
That's also true. But the point is that there's no point in having a ship go to service only to come out of maintenance after you've already got the new ships, which are far more modern and more capable still in operation. So these are decisions over which we haven't made final decisions, but that it is very important that the Navy can do sensible things with their stock of ships to make sure that we're deploying the most modern destroyers, frigates and other ships that possible.
OK. We are 101 days now into this war between Israel and Hamas. We were talking to the daughter of one Israeli hostage earlier. You'll know that the dead in Gaza include at least 8,000 Palestinian children. Israel, like any other state, has a right to self-defense. But 101 days into this, do you remain confident and comfortable about the way that this war is being waged?
Well, there's nothing comfortable about this war. You and I have discussed it before, and I personally consider, as I know you will, a life of either an Israeli or a Palestinian as to be entirely equal, and no one can look at this situation without feeling unbelievably upset and uncomfortable. The fact of so many lives being lost, the fact that the whole thing is so unnecessary, the fact that there's still hostages being kept in Gaza, all of these things are devastating, and it's really, really important that this is brought to a conclusion. I agree with that. But in the meantime, the UK is trying to do everything that we can to make sure we're getting a lot more aid into Gaza. And that's something that even in the last few hours, I've been working with our Foreign Secretary on to see what else we could still be doing, even from here.
Like what? I don't mean aid. What are we doing to bring the war to an end?
Well, we speak to all the partners all of the time, those who have influence over Hamas, those who have influence over the Palestinian Authority, over Israel, and the regional partners as well. So, I mean, those are conversations that go on all the time.
But we have our own voice. We have our own voice, don't we? And I want to put to you some of the way that people in power in Israel speak. Let's start with the Israeli army, where a spokesman said our focus is on creating damage, not on precision. That is perhaps part of the reason why so many Palestinians have died in the last 3 months.
Well, and look, absolutely, there's a difference between supporting, as you mentioned at the top, a country's right to self-defense and supporting each action or even the government of a particular country. What we're saying is that Israel, like every other country, must act within international.
But if you say your focus is on creating damage, not on precision, that doesn't suggest operating within international humanitarian law, does it?
I haven't heard those kind of comments from ministers, but it's not right.
That was an Israeli army spokesman in October. But there have ministers who've said similar things or spoken in similar ways. The defense minister said, we will eliminate everything in relation to Gaza. The finance minister has called all Palestinians Nazis, said that there are 2 million Nazis in Gaza, referred to the 2 million Palestinians who live in the West Bank in the same way. The Jerusalem Affairs Minister has said there are no non-combatants in Gaza. What do you think when you hear statements like that?
Look, I think the problem in Gaza is that a population has been essentially held to ransom by Hamas, who have decided to turn the whole of Gaza, the underground part of Gaza, into a war machine with command and control and hundreds of kilometres of tunnels and sophisticated equipment, diverted aid and productivity into building a war machine to fire thousands of rockets.
Do you think those comments are acceptable? The ones I've just read to you, are they acceptable?
No. But
what do you think they add up to as a pattern? Because there are others. The Prime Minister himself, when he invoked a biblical reference to Amalek, which involves destruction, which says, do not spare them, but kill both man, woman and child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. What do you think this adds up to when you see statements like this? And there are others. And then you look at the level of destruction in Gaza and the number of deaths.
So one of the people that you quoted was the defence minister. That's Gallant. I spoke to him both in the immediate days after those horrific 7th of October attacks by Hamas, who stormed in and slaughtered 1,200 to 1,400 people. And certainly I detected a lot of, immediate response and anger. When I speak to him now, he talks all the time about trying to find ways to be precise and proportionate.
Did you say to him it's wrong to talk about eliminating everything? Because that would be against international humanitarian law.
Yes, look, I think immediately after the attacks by Hamas, the idea of eliminating Hamas, I think, was very high on the agenda and still probably is. And I'm sure emotions may have led to things being said. The difference is the Hamas came in and took great pleasure in murdering men, women and children, in raping people, in taking hostages. When Israel carries out its action, it should be, under international humanitarian law, going after Hamas. The difficulty being Hamas are buried under their network of corridors, of tunnels, making it very, very difficult because they're positioned under the most critical infrastructure.
But among the statements I've read to you have been ones which suggest that this is a war on the Palestinian people. There are no non-combatants in Gaza.
Well, look, you've read the comments of, I haven't seen those comments, you've read the comments of 2 or 3 people. The official position of the Israeli government is and must be one of self-defense and to go after Hamas, the terrorist organization. But look, all of this is part of what I'm actually talking about in a speech today. We are living in a much less secure world. It's much more dangerous. And it's not just the state actors, the Putins of this world that are making it more dangerous. It's also the proxies, the militant organizations, the Hamases of this world, the Houthis, who are making it much more dangerous. And that's why the UK needs to use every opportunity to try to make the world safer. And we saw how we were doing that last week, within 24 hours, in the Red Sea, where we were able to deploy against the Houthis, and within that same 24 hours, in the biggest ever amount of support that we provided in a single year to Ukraine, £2.5 billion that the Prime Minister announced. So the UK is trying to play a really positive role, but it's a more complex, more dangerous world, and that's what I'll be speaking about in my Lancaster House speech this morning.
Grant Shapps, thank you.
Time now is 26 minutes past 8, and